Most of us are learning about how to exist in the bedroom from things like movies, where you often see the lights dim and then everybody bends at the knees, and then sex just happens, and people can just read each other's minds and they know what's going on. So I want to acknowledge that if this is hard for you, then it's not your freaking fault because you didn't get any models or examples or normalizations or tools. We are so wild about sex in our society that we think because we're adults, it should be natural to us and we should magically know and have all these skills. But if you were to go up to somebody who'd never taken a calculus class and just been like, hey, solve this calculus problem, you wouldn't be like, whoa, it's so weird that you don't know any calculus, even though you've never gotten any education about it. So why do we do that about sex? It's very strange. Hello and welcome to the Eva Bloom podcast. I'm your host, Eva Bloom. I'm a binary queer late bloomer coach, inclusive sex educator, and community facilitator. The Eva Bloom podcast is all about supporting you with the frameworks and understanding and tools around coming out, coming into your confidence, and dating. Also, a little bit of personal storytelling on my part to help you feel a little bit less alone. When I am not supporting late bloomers in their coming out and confidence and dating journeys, you can find me reading a sapphic sci-fi or fantasy novel, starting a new craft project, or playing board games with friends. Eva Bloom podcast is out every week on Monday. We're in season 2, baby. So you can go back and watch all of season 1 as well. Listen to season 1 as well. Every week I have new episodes all about second adolescence, coming out, dating, different aspects of sapphic identity. So come around. Stick around. Subscribe. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want even more late bloomer community, my program Queer Enough, which is all about busting queer imposter syndrome and healing from compulsory heterosexuality to live your best authentic queer life, is coming back for its new cohort this fall. It is a 8-week live group program, so you can be in the bosom virtually of a bunch of other late bloomers and sapphics to help you unlearn a bunch of BS about compulsory heterosexuality and get a bunch of tools in beautiful unlearning and healing to have confidence in your label, dating, wherever you are at in your process. So join the waitlist now. Join the waitlist at subscribepage.com/queerenough. You are going to be getting first access to join the program, as well as exclusive access to an early bird discount. There's going to be an early bird discount September 11th to 13th. So only available to people on the waitlist. So get on over there. It is a limited number of spots available because it's an intimate program. So don't wait for me to announce it on the podcast as open joining or on Instagram. Get it now. Without further ado, this week's episode is all about how to communicate in the bedroom. I'm very excited as somebody who has a background of 10 plus years as a peer sexuality educator, also my master's in the social psychology of sexuality. I'm very passionate about talking about queer and sapphic intimacy. Also, on a personal note, I know that communicating in the bedroom is hard. I feel like as a late bloomer sapphic, starting to date other sapphic people, previously dating men, it has become harder and easier to communicate in the bedroom. And in some ways, it feels harder because when I was dating men, the stakes were very low because I was like, well, I'm just going to tell them I want XYZ, and if they say no, kind of whatever. But now that I actually have feelings for the people I'm dating, actually like into them in a sexual romantic way, it can feel a little bit scarier. And I know that I've heard that sentiment echoed kind of around the sapphic community, around like, oh my gosh, getting rejected by girls or sapphics is like even harder, which I would say yes. And also communicating with sapphics is in some way easier because in general, in my experience, they've been a little bit kinder and there's some trust built. People who have also done some emotional work in order to do some of their own self-sex education. So you don't have to be the only one being like, hey, this is what's up. So it's not all super scary. But in this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be breaking down some of the reasons that it might feel challenging to communicate in the bedroom, as well as some different tools and resources to make it even easier. I'm giving you all of my sex educator knowledge into your brain. I'm very excited to share that this podcast is in partnership with Wet for Her, the brainchild of a bunch of lesbians who decided that we deserve a spicy toy brand created with us in mind. And oh boy, did they deliver in sending me the goods. I want to talk about a couple of their products today, showcase their different features, and one of the most powerful ways to facilitate communication is to have a third-party thing to reference. So whether that is browsing Wet for Her's website or ordering different toys and exploring them and talking them through with a partner, bringing in the idea of spicy toys into the relationship can help you learn a lot about each other and can help open a lot of doors to communicate and learn about what you like and what you don't like. So the first item that I want to highlight is the Wet for Her Strap Her Jock Harness. Oh my gosh. So this harness is a jock style, which means that your butt is exposed. And come on, why are we hiding the butt? We don't want to do that. It's also super sturdy and also comfortable. It has a Velcro strap that really helps keep things in place. It's incredibly comfortable in terms of moving, which you want to be doing when you're using this bad boy. It also means that your front bits are exposed so that they can be stimulated and played with in a bunch of different ways. It is just simply incredible. Honestly, it is one of the most comfortable harnesses I've ever used. It feels sporty, sexy, but also super practical. Honestly, next level. The second toy I want to highlight is a real compliment to the jock harness, and that is the Beans. And there are a couple things about this spicy toy that make it a little bit different than other dildos that you might have used before. For one, it comes in a bunch of different colors, black, purple, and a limited sunset color, which looks incredibly gorgeous. I'm going to show you what I can from this toy in keeping with YouTube's guidelines. One of the things I'm most excited about this toy is how it is created. If you know me, you know that I have a science background and very excited about all things science, and some very smart women in STEM went into creating this toy. For one, there is a built-in grinding platform at the base of the toy. It has 3 beans that you can grind on while you're wearing the strap. So you don't need to buy any additional attachments. It is right on the toy. It is also one of the smoothest silicones I have ever experienced. It is like silky smooth. It also can be bent and manipulated, and it'll hold its shape for whatever fits best for you and your partner's body. I want to try putting it in with the harness. Oh my gosh. Look at this harness. I'm obsessed. Also, look at the accessibility. Everything is all adjustable, all the different straps for lots of different sizes. The straps with the Velcro on the side for lots of different sizes. That is incredible. It also has the cute little rainbow and trans flag heart here, which I love. But I'm obsessed. The sapphics need jock harnesses too. But yeah, you just put the toy right into the O-ring here, and it'll stay. Yeah, this baby is secure. Fits right in there. I don't know if we can show this on YouTube, but there we go. It fits perfectly right in there. The harness comes with a very cute little package. So you can keep it protected and discreet in your sex toy drawer. So that was the Wet for Her Strap Her Jock Harness and the Beans Spicy Toy. Thank you so much, Wet for Her, for partnering with me and with the podcast and for supporting another lesbian-owned business. You can check out the harness and all their spicy toys at Wet for Her. Thanks so much. Before we get into the tools and the ways that we can make voicing our desires and our boundaries a little bit easier, I want to really acknowledge the challenges that, for one, most of us did not get any models or education about how to communicate in the bedroom. It was mostly not a part of our sex ed growing up. If we got sex ed, most of us are learning about how to exist in the bedroom from things like erotic video from movies where you often see the lights dim and then everybody bends at the knees and then sex just happens and people can just read each other's minds and they know what's going on, when that is not the reality of how sex actually works in real life. You have to use your words or you have to text in order to tell somebody what you like and what you don't like. So I want to acknowledge that if this is hard for you, then it's not your freaking fault because you didn't get any models or examples or normalizations or tools. We are so wild about sex in our society that we think that, like, because we're adults, it should be natural to us and we should magically know and have all these skills. But if you were to go up to somebody who'd never taken a calculus class and just been like, hey, solve this calculus problem, you wouldn't be like, whoa, it's so weird that you like don't know any calculus, even though you've never gotten any education about it. So why do we do that about sex? It's very strange. It is okay to need to learn things, and you're in the right place. Listen to this podcast to get some different tools. I also want to talk about some different barriers to communication because I think oftentimes when we maybe don't know how to communicate in the bedroom, I know I have felt this, you can get kind of take it very personally and get very like worked up in yourself, make it this big thing that you're like, it feels overwhelming. I like can't do it. This feels so hard. And one of the things I have found has been helpful is to help kind of break down, okay, what about this big scary thing, which is voicing, okay, I want to try this, or maybe I don't want to explore that, or I'm still learning and I don't have all the answers. What about that is challenging? What are the actual narratives that you have in your head that are getting in the way of you doing this? So there's some great research from a previous colleague of mine that broke down this into 3 categories: threat to self, threat to partner, and threat to relationship. So the first one, threat to self, is really around your internal emotions. So is this like, I feel so hard feeling because of your own like embarrassment? Maybe your family of origin or your culture really doesn't talk about sex. So you're like, I feel a lot of embarrassment, shame, taboo. Like this is actually bringing up a lot of personal discomfort in me. And so I don't want to do it. It feels really hard. The second category, threat to partner, is really around feeling nervous about how your partner is going to react. Being like, okay, I'm nervous that my partner is going to get upset, for example, if I share my boundaries, which, boo, they shouldn't get upset if you're telling them your boundaries. But maybe if you have a partner who maybe struggles with toxic masculinity and like ties a lot of their ego into like being good at sex, giving that person feedback might make them upset. So is that like your partner's reaction? Is that part of the reason that this feels really scary or challenging? And then the third reason is threat to relationship. So are you nervous about how this is going to change the dynamic? Are you nervous that your partner is going to think that what you like is weird and maybe they won't want to be with you anymore? Or maybe it's going to reveal a fundamental incompatibility, you're going to have to break up. Or you're nervous that there's going to lead to a conflict, disagreement, an argument that is going to be challenging or hard for you to navigate. So I would invite you to take some time to like journal or think about which one of these feels the most like strong to you that's coming up. Or maybe is it all of them? Are you like, all of these feel real? But at least being able to go from a nebulous, like this feels hard, to like, okay, what are the different specific things am I worried about, can be a helpful starting point to be like, okay, then how can I address them? If I'm worried about my own embarrassment, maybe I can watch some more sex education videos or podcasts so I get myself a little more comfortable with the idea about talking about sex or listening to people talk about sex. If I am nervous about talking to my partner, can we have some more general conversations about like, okay, what is your idea of good sex, or your general, like, what do you want to feel when it comes to a sexual experience, or even like what types of media have informed the way you think about sex growing up, or did you get sex ed in high school? Having some of those most more general conversations might help kind of lay a foundation. And then also in terms of navigating conflict or navigating conversations, you can think about different strategies to do it in a way to set yourself up for success. So having the conversation fully clothed, not immediately before you're about to have sex. Setting the expectation or communicating that we're going to have multiple little conversations, that this conversation doesn't have to be the be all and end all. And can you have some aftercare set up after the conversation of like, you're going to watch your favorite movie, or you're going to give yourself more compliments and affirmations that will support the conversation. So we got to figure out what's challenging before we can figure out how do we come up with different solutions to make this a little bit more easier to navigate. Next, when it comes to communication, my whole framework is around this idea of a cycle of communication. Put in the comments if you've heard of yes means yes, no means no, which is an awesome framework to really validate, that when somebody says no, they don't mean convince me. That a verbal yes and verbal communication is really important, really powerful. And I think in some ways, it kind of restricts us around how we think about communication. That communication in the bedroom is not just like a one-time chat that we have before we have sex and then never again with our partners, or that it's weird or awkward to communicate about our desires with our partners, especially if we have been together for a long time. That kind of mindset is really not helpful, because the reality is that we are growing, evolving human beings, that what we like might change and grow throughout our lives as we learn more information, as we try new stuff. We might be unlearning different harmful shame, and that might open us up to new possibilities. And also what we like can change just based on the context. With the type of sex you want to have after like a 12-hour shift, you're like, I just want to smooch and like, can you use a vibrator on me and then that'll be done, versus you're on a vacation and you have all the time in the world. So what you like will also change in the context too. So having communication tools and having conversations about sex being an ongoing conversation is, I think, a real like life skill to have. So I love the idea of a cycle of communication or an ongoing conversation as opposed to just like one and done. So if we think about a cycle of communication, we have before, during, after, and also it keeps moving around in that cycle. So if we start with before, there are lots of helpful things that you can do to support yourself in feeling more confident naming your desires and boundaries before you ever even bring in your partner. So that might be something like doing a yes, no, maybe list, or a want or won't list, which is basically a list of 3 big columns. You write down all things that you're like, yes, I'm interested in doing that. These things that you're like, maybe I want to do. These things like, nope, we're not interested in doing that. I find that doing that exercise by yourself, even without thinking about a partner, can be really helpful, especially for people like us, people who deal with people pleasing. If you're a woman, marginalized gender, really easy people pleasing to already be thinking about like, oh, but was my partner going to think about this? Nope. Get him on the picture. Just think about yourself. Like if you could pick or do anything, like what would actually be intriguing for you and what could you like kind of take it or leave it? So I think that can be really helpful. I love Scarlet Teen has a great kind of example list. If you're like, I don't know what I would put in these 3 columns, that's overwhelming. Explanations, the YouTube channel also has a great video, the 250 sex acts, which can also help you populate. But yeah, I think thinking about in advance can be really helpful as you go into these conversations. And also something I have to remind myself too is that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to be learning as you go with a partner. It's okay to say, hey, I'm intrigued by this and I don't know whether I'll like it. Or like, I want to try this with you and I want to see how I feel about it. I think there can be this pressure to know everything we like about ourselves, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're just new, especially for late bloomers, newly sapphic, having new sapphic experiences. Feel like I don't know how I'm going to feel about using a strap-on. I'm curious to try it and I want to explore together, but giving yourself space to not have all the answers, I think is really huge. I think I already talked about some of this stuff, but I think that setting the scene can be really helpful in terms of how you have these conversations. So, like I said, not doing it when you're naked and about to have sex, that is so vulnerable. Getting rejected in that position is so challenging. Do it when you're clothed. Do it when you're both in a good mood, when you've both had dinner, like when you're feeling good and secure in your relationship. Literally, like, set yourself up for success. And like I said, I think have the expectation that it's not just going to be a one and done conversation, that this is going to be ongoing. And again, that you don't have to have all the answers at the end of this conversation. I also really think that inviting discussion is really huge. To, ask your partner, did you get sex ed in high school? Or is there anything that you're curious about? Is there anything that you still have questions about? Really be at an open discussion place. I think also leading with warmth and love or care or respect, kindness for your partner, whatever your kind of relationship you have together, is so huge. If you come into the conversation with an energy of like, I am so nervous, they're going to pick up on that shit. So breathe, and bring in a warmth and excitement to the conversation. So we're using the cycle of consent or cycle of communication we're starting with before. We've done our yes, no, maybe list, we're brainstorming, we're thinking, moving into before, but also having a conversation with the partner. I think some essentials to talk about are around your hard nose and boundaries. Letting a partner know, hey, by the way, this is what I call my chest, or like, hey, by the way, I don't want my hair touched in this way. That can be really helpful to avoid potential uncomfortable situations in the future. I also really love as an essential initial conversation before you engage in any type of situation with your partner is to talk about how you want to communicate, which can feel very meta and minutia, but having something like a safe word or a safe word system can be really helpful. And I know you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Eva, I'm not having super kinky sex. Why would I need a safe word? But if it feels easier for you to say one word than it does for you to say like, oh my gosh, we've been in this position for a while and my leg is cramping and I think I need a glass of water and also to switch positions and I'd like it, but maybe I think other things would make me feel better. If it makes you feel easier to just say like yellow to mean let's like slow down and check in, say yellow. Safe words and safe word systems are not just for kinky sex. It's literally a tool that you can use to make yourself feel more confident and support you in navigating intimacy. So I really like the stoplight system. So green means go. Everything's feeling great. Love that. You can either ask it in terms of how do you feel about this particular behavior, or in check-in in the moment, being like, how are you feeling? Or it could be something you say out loud. I also think that yellow is really powerful to mean let's pause and check in. Or again, breaking down like the binaries of yes or no. You're allowed to say maybe. You're allowed to say, I want to try it and find out. But yellow can be a great place to be like, I'm curious, or I have some reservations, but I'm interested, or I want to pause and check in and slow down and find out. And then red to mean no, hard no, or let's wrap up this session, put on clothes, get water, I'm done. There are also other really great tools for when you're in the moment, when you're during. If you are nervous or you're new to communicating with your partner, just giving positive feedback can go a long way. Giving positive feedback is communicating. Moaning or saying like, oh, like it feels so good, it looks so sexy when you do blank, that is giving them information about what you want more of. So you're doing great. It can also be helpful to ask like, how does that feel? As opposed to, does that feel good? Because we live in a society that's not super strong prioritization of consent, that it's very hard to say no. So when somebody asks, does that feel good? It's really hard to say, no, it doesn't, as opposed to how does it feel is a much more open-ended question to be like, it feels good, and I would love it if there was a pillow under my butt, or if you could do a little bit faster, or if you could add another finger. I also really like giving people options. Do you want me to go faster or slower? Do you want to keep making out, or do you want to go upstairs to the bedroom? Do you want another orgasm, or do you want to have a little cuddle? Can be helpful as opposed to just being like, what do you want to do? Be like, I don't know. Also the classic sandwich feedback, which we may have heard of, giving essays, but just being like, hey, this feels so good. And I would love it if you would call me X. like dirty talk thing. And then when they do it, be like, yeah, that's so sexy. So to sandwich a positive affirmation with a suggestion for feedback and then a positive affirmation. All great tools for actually in the bedroom. And then rounding out our cycle of communication, we have afterwards. Like I said, we are moving away from this idea of communication just being one moment, that it's an ongoing conversation that you have with your partner. And in an ideal world, your communication is not just to help you have good sex one time. We would love it for it to be a tool to help you continuously have deeper, more pleasurable sex with your partner over time. We want to be talking about, okay, we tried that thing and it didn't really do it for me. Or I would actually love it if you dirty talked more. Or like, what if we could explore this thing next time, and keeping that ongoing. Maybe not giving the like, didn't love that thing immediately after when you're very vulnerable and naked, but again, keeping that conversation going. Also, if it's easier to do that stuff over text, that can be super helpful if you're very nervous. I literally did my whole master's thesis on sexting, and a big part of that was around normalizing technology as a tool, especially words and sentences, texting as opposed to photos, as being a great tool for communication, especially for people who are nervous and learning. Another tool that I'm really passionate about is conversation card decks, which there are a lot of them out here, and not all of them are super queer inclusive, but I love the one from Cool to Connect, the Intimate deck, which was co-created by my coach, Erica Eileen. So she put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and work and many, many thousands of hours of sex coaching into this deck. So I really love it. I think it's really awesome, both in it's very sexy, and you can tell that a sex coach wrote it because it is really designed to help you unlearn some harmful myths about sex. And it also has a bunch of invitations for learning together and play, and like invitations for behavior with the partner. So I think it's really cool. I would also say if you only get through 3 questions or cards, that's how I'm gonna meet my girlfriend. So yeah, it can take a lot. They can be big questions, but they're really fun, and yeah, would recommend. There is so much to say about sex ed, about communication in the bedroom, both like communicating our desires and the things that we like, and different language to use, and then also lots to say about how to communicate our boundaries and how to navigate saying our boundaries in a world that does not really have a consent culture. So if you want more episodes about this, please let me know in the comments. And I am really excited for you to be learning and embarking on this journey and creating new models of how to have sex in a sapphic way. If you're new to sapphic intimacy, I'm really excited for you, and I hope you give yourself so much self-compassion along this learning journey. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody is. Whether you've been having sapphic sex for like 20 years or you just started, everybody's learning. So you're doing great, and I hope some of these tools you can stick in your back pocket and they can be helpful. That brings me to the segment of what I'm loving this week, where I talk about the books I'm reading, music I'm listening to, the food I'm loving, and my favorite creators. So in terms of books that I am reading, I just read I Shall Never Fall in Love, I think it's called. It's a graphic novel. It's queer, Regency, non-binary, unlearning compet. Oh, it's so good for somebody who was brought up on Pride and Prejudice and Jane Austen and Sense and Sensibility. Really hits the dang spot. If you're new to graphic novels, get into it. I freaking love graphic novels. I'm a graphic novel fiend. I probably read like at least 30 graphic novels last year. Maybe not that many, but at least 20. So I love it. In terms of music, I am highly anticipating Molly Grace's new album, which I believe it's called Blush. The cover art is so early 2000s, but I'm so excited. Gonna see her on tour. It's gonna be a blast, and she's releasing so many singles off the album, so I'm sad. In terms of what I'm cooking, what I'm making, there is a vegan taco restaurant near me, and this is the second time that I'm ordering Uber Eats of them for now. This is how I reward myself for recording the podcast too late and procrastinating, is that there is a delicious vegan taco treat at the end of it. That sounds gay, And it is, but not in that way. But yeah, I think it's called Taqueria Vegana. So good. They come with so many different salsas. So good. And in terms of creators I'm loving, I am late to the game of Gaydar, which is a celebrity question show hosted by Anania. I'm obsessed with her interviews with Sasha Colby and Zoran Mondami, the Democratic New York mayor candidate. I'm in Canada and Toronto, but we love it. Anania crushes it. She's a freaking star. So go check it out for some wholesome queer joy and giggles. But that brings us to the end of the episode. Again, please get on that waitlist for Queer Enough if you want to be busting queer imposter syndrome and healing compet this fall. There are limited spots, so the waitlist is where you want to be. The early bird is going to be September 11th to 13th, so get on that waitlist at evilbloom.ca/queerenough. But that's it for me. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're out every single week. We're in season 2. We're doing it! Without further ado, stay curious, keep blooming, and I'll see you in the next episode.